Welcome back, YouTubers. Today we have got Jordan Newman's first gen here in the shop behind us. If you guys remember from the last video, I said that it was time to change some hard parts, and I rattled off a list of 5 or 6 things that I was wanting to change. And we have changed a couple of those things today, but we're gonna Nessie on changing everything right away. Even though probably still isn't the wrong move to do a bunch of changes. In drag racing, generally, you don't want to make more than 1 or 2 changes at a time because you start making 3 or 4 changes, now you are actually worse off than where you were, and you don't know which of the 3 or 4 things, or in this case, maybe even 5 or 6 different things, helped or hurt you. So we're going to start with the cheapest things and the things that we know it for sure needs. And the first of that is, as you can see behind us here, an anti-roll bar. We definitely know that no matter what, the truck is going to need an anti-roll bar moving forward. We are leaving on Tune 1 900 microseconds of fuel only, not very aggressive, and we're already getting a lot of chassis roll because it is leaf spring front and rear. So we know that as we continue to add more power to it, we're just going to have worse and worse chassis roll. You can band-aid this a little bit by cranking a bunch of preload into that passenger side cow track bar, but I like to do things the right way when we can. And when you're friends with the guys at 10 Soldier Race Cars, you can just run up the street and get a really nice anti-roll bar kit. So that's exactly what we did here. So let's check out this anti-roll bar. We'll talk a little bit about it. If you're not familiar with what an anti-roll bar is, it's essentially like a sway bar. You're trying to control the twist of the body with it. These TSR billet arms are really nice. They're billet steel, they're good and strong, and this is a really nice kit. It's got nice bushings in it. It's still lightweight, but still strong. The anti-roll bar, especially on a leaf spring car or like a stock suspension triangulated 4-link, is not something you want to skimp on. You want to get a really nice anti-roll bar because this thing is going to be doing a lot of work. So essentially we are going to use this to control body roll, and then this will actually become a little bit of a tuning tool for us because we'll be able to put some preload in this passenger side link bar. If we want to counteract even more body roll, we can lengthen or shorten that as we need, and it's basically changing the amount of weight that you're putting on this tire, similar to like the upper bar in a 4-link, and this will allow us some more tunability. So this was something that we knew the truck was going to need for sure moving forward, and I felt like this was 100% the first place that we needed to start. And then the second change that we made is the front shocks were full tight before, and they just were not able to control the rotation of the chassis. A lot of that is because we're still on factory leaf springs, and I'm not sure if you can really tell, but these factory leaf springs are old, they're tired, and they've got this big heavy common rail motor sitting on top of them, and they're actually bowed downward. So these things have a tremendous amount of stored energy in them. So when you come off of the trans brake button, this compressed leaf spring is actually promoting the front end to separate, and then that's making it a lot harder on your shocks to do their job. So this is what I would consider a band-aid fix, but if it works, then that's totally fine. We put a coil spring on the shock. I elected to start with a 130-pound 14-inch coil spring, and so what that is doing is that is sharing some of the load with this leaf spring, so we are taking some stored energy out of the front end. So hopefully what that will allow us to do is either control the front end with the shocks full tight, or hopefully even allow us to have a little bit more adjustment with the front shocks. Now these front shocks really aren't anything too special. They're just a strange single adjustable shock. So as we continue down this path and we continue to get faster and faster, I suspect that these shocks are not going to work for us. We're going to need something with tremendously stiffer valving, something that's really up for the task. But getting back to the racetrack, making as little changes as possible, and doing it as cheap as possible, because let's be honest, all this stuff costs money and you need to spend your money wisely. We had a set of springs here. It didn't cost any money to try this, and so this is what I am trying to do to slow the front end travel down. So we've only made those two changes. We've added front shocks. We're going to keep the same shock settings front and rear to see what the front springs will do on the front shocks. And then we've added a really nice 10-soldier race car anti-roll bar to it. And so now we're ready to go to the racetrack with it and see what these changes do. We have made it to Thornhill Dragway in Morning View, Kentucky. The oldest consecutively ran drag strip in the country, actually. So we are all set up here and ready to see what the new changes are going to do. Like I said, we are leaving everything exactly how it was before, and going to go out there and see what the anti-roll bar helps us with and go from there. I think that if I'm going to have predictions, I'm going to say that we still need to loosen up the compression on the rear shocks. I think the rear compression is still a little tight, but as bad as I want to go into there and loosen them way up, I'm going to not do that. I'm going to refrain and wait and see what it looks like after this first run. So we pulled the data after the first run here, and we're moving in the right direction, but we still got some ugly lines. Green is the drive shaft RPM, blue is boost, red is engine RPM. The biggest thing to look at here is the drive shaft RPM and the engine RPM. You can see we got this little high hump in it. That's wheel speed. Engine RPM follows it, and that's why this looks like a little mountain peak. We don't want that. We want our drive shaft RPM to climb out, but we're fighting with this because we keep topping the front shocks out. When it tops the front shocks out, it wants to unload the rear. The rear is too stiff, so I've loosened it up to full loose on the compression in the rear. So I went a big swing, 16 clicks. That's a big jump. So hopefully that'll allow the rear to go down more. So basically the crank will be up over the pinion when it does pop the front shocks out and give us at least a chance. But next thing I'm seeing that we need to figure out is definitely some really tight valving. I'm normally very much against anything radial when it comes to a 4x4, but I think we might end up with some radial shocks on the front of this thing where we have a bunch of control with the front extension. We need that front extension to be super tight. But let's do what we can while we're here and go back out here and make one more. Run number 2. Green drive shaft RPM, red's engine RPM, blue is boost. Looks very similar to the first one. So loosening the rear compression up didn't really net us much of anything, because our problem is so out of whack in the front that our rear band-aid wasn't able to really take in any effect. You can see that when the green bump up, that's where it's spinning, and then it actually tries to spin a little bit more on this one. The track conditions look to be about the same, so I don't think it was like the track went away or anything like that. It's just that when the front tops out, the whole chassis is upset because it unloads the rear at the same time. So this was a 148 60 foot. I don't remember if I said or not, but the first pass was a 146. This was 19.8 pounds of boost on the starting line, so it made, within a half a pound of boost. The same, obviously we don't have any nitrous coming on down track or any boost ramp in it or anything, so it's all the same. And 60 footed, basically exactly the same. 148 slowed up just a little bit because that drive shaft RPM looks a little uglier. So now we have some decisions to make on what to change next, but that's going to conclude our evening of testing because there's no sense in putting any more runs on it, any more wear and tear, until we're able to make changes that work on the racetrack. If you're making changes and the racetrack is not showing improvement, sorry, it's loud. If you're making changes, the racetrack's not showing improvement, that's when it's time to put it in the box and reevaluate it.